Muscle cells are also known as muscle fibers. And so here is a picture of an entire muscle cell or muscle fiber, and wrapped in yellow in this image. There are myofilaments that are within this muscle cell. There is a sarcomere, which is going to be the shortest contractile unit. There are many sarcomeres in each muscle fiber. And there are striations throughout. And those striations, again, are from the contractile proteins that will enable these muscle cells to shorten and thereby allow the overall muscle organ to shorten or contract. Looking at each of these in turn, we want to look at the muscle fiber. So this large area, this whole thing here in this image, is all a muscle fiber. So you can see that it's got several fascicles in it, and these fascicles have the myofibrils. Each cell or muscle fiber has something known as a sarcolemma. So this yellow region here represents the sarcolemma. This is the fancy name for a plasma membrane. But when we're talking about the muscular system, sarco is going to be used in referring to some of these microstructures in the muscular system. For instance, we also have sarcoplasm. So just like in a cell, we have cytoplasm. Instead of saying cytoplasm, in a muscle fiber, we call it sarcoplasm. So that, again, is going to be a cell specific to the muscular system, and the cell is specifically the muscle fiber. Within the sarcoplasm, there are several other things. There are myofibrils, which are those long cords that are going to make up most of the sarcoplasm. You can see them here, these cords down here. There's glycogen. Because skeletal muscles are so active and are contracting quite often, they require a lot of ATP. Where do we get the most ATP? By using glycogen. We can get the most ATP by using glucose. And so glucose is stored in the muscle fibers as glycogen. Glycogen is a complex form of glucose. And so this carbohydrate is stored in order to provide immediate energy for exercise. Myoglobin is also in the sarcoplasm. This is a red pigment. It's what gives the muscle red coloration, and it provides oxygen. It's a major source of oxygen for the muscle fiber. Again, if you are using your muscles a lot, which we do, your skeletal muscles, you're going to need to be able to produce a lot of ATP. And as we've learned from cellular respiration, this is going to require glucose and oxygen. And so we have glycogen stores in myoglobin to help provide those for us. There's also many mitochondria. We need the mitochondria to help make that ATP in the electron transport chain. There's also many nuclei, as you can see here and you've seen in some of the micrographs. There can be as many as 80 nuclei in a muscle fiber. So these muscle cells are very different than an average cell we've been referring to. Again, we have something else, sarco. We have endoplasmic reticulum in regular cells that we've talked about before, but here we're going to refer to the endoplasmic reticulum as a sarcoplasmic reticulum. So this is a smooth ER that's going to be around each of those myofibril components. The sarcoplasmic reticulum is a little bit different than the traditional smooth ER that we talk about because it has these dilated ends, and we call those terminal cisterns. And they cross the muscle fiber from one side to the other. We will see these in other figures, but here it is right here. Is a terminal cistern on either side of the sarcoplasmic reticulum there. This sarcoplasmic reticulum acts as a calcium reservoir, and we will see that calcium is essential in order to get muscle contractions. And so the sarcoplasmic reticulum holds that calcium, and it will release it to activate muscle cell contraction. Transverse tubules also exist within a muscle fiber or muscle cell. Transverse tubules we often refer to as T-tubules. These are infoldings of the sarcolemma, so where this yellow will actually infold in, and it's usually between two ends of sarcoplasmic reticulum, and they penetrate through the cell. Each T-tubule is also going to have terminal cisterns on either side. Some other things to know about regarding muscle cells or muscle fibers. There are myoblasts, again using this prefix myo, and a blast, if you remember from learning our other tissues, blast is creation or genesis, so these are going to be muscle cell creators. Myoblasts will create muscle cells. So they are stem cells that fuse together to form a new muscle fiber, and this happens early in development because you don't generate new muscle fibers as an adult. There are also things known as satellite cells. These are myoblasts that don't specialize. They just remain these kind of generalized stem cells, and they'll stay between the fiber and the endomysium, and they will help repair any damaged muscle tissue. So again, we don't make new muscle tissue, but we can repair what we have if it's been damaged. So again, myoblasts, the term to know because they become and produce muscle cells. Something I just want you to be aware of is that the number of muscle fibers or muscle cells that you have is set after birth. Once you're born, that's it. There's no new generation. But people often wonder, well, how come, a bodybuilder didn't come out of the womb with these excessive muscles? What happens when somebody does a whole lot of weightlifting or training? And what we call that is hypertrophy. And hypertrophy is essentially an increase in size. You can see that these cells here on the right have grown in size. Hyperplasia is where we have an increase in number. As an adult, we don't have an increase in the number of fibers, but we do have an increase in muscle cell size. And that's what you see when people work out a lot and their muscles really take shape or they get larger. It's hypertrophy.